Hey, what's going on YouTube? Casey here. It's a new week and I'm back with a new episode. This week's episode is going to be slightly more interesting than watching paint dry. So hang out, check it out, and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so this week, what little time I had out in the shop was consumed by cleaning up this pair of spindles for the 1968 Mustang project, disassembling the trunk space on the crazy Casey Roadster, and then prepping and priming my door sills and my trunk lid for primer. So rather than literally making you watch paint dry, let's do something different. Grab yourself a Montucky cold snack and your favorite U-Joint off-road beer koozie and join me for a tour of my shop. All right, so this is the 2-car residential garage that makes up my workspace. Now, I'm not complaining. I've got a bigger and better workspace than a lot of folks doing more impressive things than I am. And in fact, it's quite spacious and well laid out when you really get down to it. That said, I'd love to have a much larger shop. And someday I will. But I think I've maximized the space that I do have well, and I just wanted to give you guys a brief introduction to where I do my work. So, we'll just start at one corner and work our way to the other. Harbor Freight parts washer. Now, Harbor Freight isn't known for the best quality tools. I don't like to rely on them for anything super critical, but a parts washer, especially with a couple of tweaks, like a oil filter adapter, which allows you to filter out your liquid, your solvent. It's a decent washer, and it's maybe $200 into the whole thing, if that. My very first toolbox. My mom and dad got this for me for, I think, either my 15th or 16th birthday. Just a really basic toolbox, and I still have it, and it served me well. When I bought the Excellent Adventure van, it had a Craftsman toolbox inside of it that was basically just used for storage, and it fits my my stack-on toolbox perfectly. So I added it on. It's as a separate level. When you run out of room, going vertical is definitely the way to do it. I had this toolbox for at least a decade before I labeled the drawers. I highly recommend labeling your drawers. Organization is key to maximizing a small workspace. I've also got a Harbor Freight belt sander. Again, decent enough tool. I've had it for about 5 years. I use it pretty regularly. It seems to work just fine. Having a belt sander is a must. Got a couple of different grinders. I've got one that was given to me by a buddy of mine that's, I believe, a 2 horsepower, and I use it for buffing. I also have a nice big wire wheel on it. It'll take a part, rip it out of your hands, and throw it across the room, so it's plenty strong enough. I've got another grinder with 2 abrasive wheels on it. This one I use only for mild steel TIG, and I'm gonna change the wheel out to a new one that I'll only use for aluminum. When I do that, I will probably label them. Right now it's easy enough to not get confused because I only have the one new wheel on there. Some parts for the crazy Casey Roadster, a Harbor Freight sandblasting cabinet. I'm sure you're sensing a theme here. I have a lot of Harbor Freight tools. For the home shop, it's tough to beat some of the Harbor Freight stuff. Sandblasting cabinet is, gosh, it makes life so much easier for small resto work. Every car I've ever bought, if I'm pulling off valve covers, I'm sandblasting them before I put them back on the car. If I'm pulling off any sort of underhood bracketry, I'm sandblasting it before I put it back on the car, and painting it, of course. Sandblaster is definitely just very, very key. My welders, I've got the Lincoln Electric Home Depot special. You can almost always find one of these for sale on Craigslist. I don't know what that's all about. I think I paid $400. It's a 180 amp, 220 volt MIG welder. It does a fine job on mild steel. And then the Miller Syncrowave. It's a Syncrowave 210. This is a phenomenal TIG welder. I still don't really know what the hell I'm doing with TIG, but I'm trying to learn. Storage. I mean, this is just controlled chaos, and my workbench is a disaster. I should have cleaned it off before the video, but you know, there's only so many hours in a day. I've got lots of fittings organized in sliding drawers, basically a bunch of spare parts and crap. I used to have all of my tools hung up until I got a second toolbox, or most of my hand tools rather. Now I just have like extra wrenches, line wrenches, hammers, and miscellaneous stuff. Hacksaws, my car duster, my stapler, paint gun. I don't use the paint gun very often. Steering wheels, hubcaps, and gas tanks from previous projects. This is kind of fun. I'll show you this picture right here. It's all old and faded. So that is me and my roommates in college, and that was a 68 Firebird. Back before you could just order a quarter panel, I bought this car out of a field to cut the quarters off of it because they were better than the ones that were on my car. That's me crouching in the middle of the car. The car was on fire. I think the flames have faded out of the photo. My roommate Braun, my roommate Zeke. Both great guys. We had just flipped the car over onto its roof so that I could cut the floor in half to get rid of it at the junkyard. Anyway, good times back in college. So yeah, there's the workbench, and it is a disaster. Got some storage underneath, a couple of crankshafts. I bought this storage shelving unit at Costco a couple of years ago. It's where I keep parts that are gonna go on future projects, like a whole host of KC slim light LEDs that are gonna go on the adventure van, a wiring harness kit from Speedway that'll go on something eventually, a bunch of spares for the axles in the van. Those are not Krager's. Here's the engine for the crazy Casey Roadster under a cover. Trying to keep it nice and clean until it makes its debut. Another Harbor Freight tool. This is a 20-ton press from Harbor Freight, outfitted with a Swag off-road finger brake, which is an awesome deal. About $500. You can make all sorts of cool bends. You know, not just 90s. And that's like 3/16 thick stuff. Bend it like it was nothing. Behind the press, I've got my control panel for my compressor, which is outside, which also goes down to an air valve and a filter, which supplies air through this reel right here. I used to have a compressor sitting in the garage, and that was a total pain in the butt. It was loud, took up a bunch of floor space. So this setup is a lot better. I wish I had a light on it that lit up when it was on, because I always forget to turn this thing off, and then at 3 o'clock in the morning it kicks on and wakes me up, and I'm sure my neighbors love it too. And then we start getting into the fun stuff. My mill. Now, this is not Harbor Freight, but this is also made in China. Precision Matthews. It's a gearhead mill and drill machine. This thing's actually pretty trick, and it was only about $1,000, maybe $1,500. It's heavy duty. The mill and the stand weighs about 1,000 pounds. It's a 9x30, so the table axis is 9 in the Y direction and 30 in the X direction. It's got a power feed. It's also got a power down feed. I have a DRO for it. I haven't figured out how to hook it up yet. I spent some money on the tooling. So here's the thing. I really wanted a Bridgeport. Bridgeports are hard to find. They're expensive when you find them. A lot of times they have a lot of slop in them that an experienced machinist can work around. But somebody who's just starting out, having a machine that's nice and tight is probably ideal. So I got this. The secondary market for these is really strong. They sell for almost as much money used as they do brand new. It's a Chinese tool, but the guy from Precision Matthews, I think his name is Matt, he stands behind him. I think he gives you like a 3-year unconditional warranty. When you go online, you read all the reviews, like people have broken, you know, they've smoked the motor going too heavy on this thing, and he'll send them a brand new motor. So I figured, learn how to do machine work on something like this, and then eventually, when I'm ready, when I get my bigger shop, get the Bridgeport, and all of the tooling is the same size. I believe it's an R9, call it, that it uses. The Kurt vise is just a thing of beauty, and that'll go with me on whatever I go to next. Next to the mill, I keep all of my work holding. Again, DRO that's not hooked up, and then I've got a small toolbox full of mill tooling. Got a couple of different face mills. I've got a Starrett spindle square, which makes tilting the head on this thing a piece of cake. Yeah. Carbides. A drilling jig. A piece of tooling I made for holding a Holley 4-barrel carb body. Parallel set. Some spare collets. Keep all my end mills on the side there, all of my collets there. Which is not what that's designed for. Chemical shelf. I glossed right over my my old locker, which I used for spray paint and like lacquer thinner, stuff like that. And then my favorite tool in the shop, my South Bend 10-inch lathe. This is a 10x48, which means it's got a 10-inch swing. That's the maximum diameter of a part that you can chuck up in the chuck, 10 inches, so 5-inch radius. It's a 10x48, so it's got a 48-inch or 4-foot bed. Powered compound in both X and Y directions. You know, I don't know how I lived before I had this thing. It's just, it comes in handy anytime you need to make spacers, any kind of linkages. It's just really handy. And then I keep all of my lathe tools, dial indicators, things like that in the toolbox, or in the desk rather, that serves as my stand for my lathe. And then I also have another small toolbox with other machine tools, lathe tools, carbides, mics and calipers. I got all kinds of carbide from the previous owner. So yeah. And then my new toolbox. This is as fancy as I'm ever gonna get. This is my Snap-on. This is a CSPS. Probably stands for Costco something, because that's where I got it. But this thing is killer, man. It's got really nice ball bearing drawers. I've got one drawer for clamps. I've got one drawer for wrenches. metric and standard. I've got one drawer for socket wrenches and torque wrenches. Miscellaneous drawer. Got a drawer for pliers. Drawer for shears, scissors, and cutting and grinding equipment. Got a drawer for engine tools. Got a drawer for sockets. I mean, this thing is killer. It's got a lid that folds down, but I've always got so much crap on top of it that I can never quite get the lid to fold down. During COVID, I arranged all of my bolts. Yeah, probably quite a few of you did that during COVID. Got all my workshop manuals on a shelf, as well as a whole bunch of extra oil filters. Don't ask me why. More storage up at the top. So yeah, I mean, that's it. That's my workspace. It ain't much, but I make do. The worst part of all is that I have to push both cars out really to do anything at all. Which is tough, you know. I can put one back in and work on it in the garage, so that part's nice. But if it was ever raining, something's gonna get wet, and that is a bummer. And then, because I am just so out of room, this is my 22-foot car trailer. And I don't keep cars in it. I keep my engine stand, some extra steel that I've got for sale on Craigslist, big bulky things like my shop vac, my sawhorses, bags of sand for the sandblaster that I don't want to get wet in the rain. So yeah, that's it. So, you know, for those of you out there wishing you had a big shop so that you can work on your car project, you don't need a big shop to work on your car project. You can do a lot out of a 2-car garage. And you can do a lot out of a 1-car garage. I used to only have a 1-car garage, and I built plenty of car projects out of it. So anyway, thanks for checking out my shop. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little shop tour. Hope you enjoyed your Montucky cold snack. Thank you again for watching this week. I am so stoked with all the feedback that I've been getting on the channel. Seems like you guys really like the Roadster project. Seems like you're a little on the fence on the Mustang project. I guess there's probably a lot of Mustangs out there. They have a tendency to run over crowds. So I get it. But I'm excited about that project. That's gonna get turned into a, well, it's a beautiful car. It will always be a beautiful car, but I want to track it. So it's getting a roll bar, racing seats, some really beefy brakes that are the same spec used in the 1970 Trans Am season, maybe a little teeny bit modernized. It's getting some lightweight parts in the engine, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to take it on the racetrack and beat on it. And then eventually I'm going to put it all back to stock again and drive it on the street. So you'll get to see that transformation on the channel. You'll get to see the Crazy Casey Roadster get finished, you know, God willing. You'll get to see more of the Excellent Adventure van too. Full interior built out, so on and so forth. And any other projects that I drag home. I have a thing for orphan cars. So, again, thank you so much for watching this week. Please hit that like button, leave a comment to let me know what you want to see more of in the future. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel because that helps me out a lot. Thank you again so much, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. All right, cheers.